So you clicked on this video because you were interested in learning how to add and subtract complex numbers. So before we begin, let's first talk about what is a complex number. A complex number is a number of the form a plus bi, where a is what we call the real part and b is what we call the imaginary part. And again, b is called the imaginary part because it's the part that's connected to the I, which is the imaginary number. Now, a and b are both real numbers, okay? So this is the form of a complex number. So if you wanted to add two complex numbers, say 1 plus 2i plus 3 minus 4i, then all you do is you simply add the real parts together and add the imaginary parts together. So the real part here is 1, the real part here is 3. So you add those together. And then the imaginary part here is 2i, and the imaginary part here is negative 4i. So 1 plus 3 is 4. 2i minus 4i is minus 2i. So this will be your final answer, 4 minus 2i. Again, when you add two complex numbers, your result will also be a complex number. So now let's say you wanted to subtract two complex numbers. Say you wanted to subtract 3 plus 2i minus 6 plus 4i. Now there's two ways you can look at this. The first way you could think is, I want to subtract the real parts. So just like with the adding, subtract the real part. So the real part here is 3, the real part here is 6. And then subtract the imaginary parts. The imaginary part here is 2i, the imaginary part here is 4i. So you subtract those. However, if you think of it that way, you have to separate those two with the plus sign. So 3 minus 6 is negative 3, and 2i minus 4i is negative 2i. But if you have plus a negative 2i, then that just becomes 3 minus 2i. That will be your final answer. That's one way you can look at it. Another way you can look at it is you can, instead of thinking subtract the real parts and subtract the imaginary parts, you could think of, let's distribute this negative and make it a plus or addition of complex numbers. So if you think of it that way, you would distribute the negative. So I'm going to erase this. Distributing the negative to both terms inside this parenthesis. So that becomes 3 plus 2i minus 6 minus 4i. Right? And that's still a plus in between. And now you combine your like terms. So 3 minus 6 and 2i minus 4i. Essentially, it's the same as what we did before. It's just thinking of it in different terms. And so negative 3 minus 2i is your final answer, which is what we got earlier. So this is how you add and subtract complex numbers. Basically, you add the real parts or subtract the real parts and add the imaginary parts or subtract the imaginary parts.